Well, now to Detroit, where lawmakers there are calling for an investigation into the city's protest response. Detroit, Michigan's police chief James Craig says these calls are, quote, unfortunate and a repeat of a number of false claims made without verifying the facts. And the police chief, Craig, joins us now. Sir, you, as we've mentioned before, you are this one area where the issue of law and order seems to have been done right. You haven't had the out-of-control violence that we have seen in many other U.S. cities. But now lawmakers are pointing a finger at you. Apparently they have some trouble with law and order. How do you respond?
You know, this is simply, David, thanks for letting me come on your show again, but this is nothing more than protest pressure. So people or some who are in political leadership are folding to the pressure by the protesters. So it's not by accident that you see the number of chiefs across the country who are leaving in large numbers. They don't feel supported. The men and women who are on the ground doing this work don't feel supported. And so it's really about this pressure. That's the bottom line.
Well, we're looking right now, Chief, forgive me for interrupting, but what we see on the screen are the police chiefs who've been either directly forced to resign or indirectly so. And look at the number of black police chiefs who have resigned. 4 out of the 6 are black Americans, 2 of whom are women. How in Lord's name do you justify racial justice by firing black police chiefs?
Because that's not part of the agenda of those who are calling for police chiefs to resign. They've called for my resignation. It's no different here, except the one thing that's notably different is that the mayor and I are in lockstep. He supports our posture in dealing with violent protesters, those who attack our officers. He also supports that when those resist arrest and we have to use force, we do so in a measured way. And so that's the stark difference in what you see here in Detroit versus these many other cities.
Well, you mentioned a key point here, which is lost on the mainstream media in general and a lot of other people. A lot of the disturbances that we have seen use racial, they're not about racial justice. They use racial justice for other ends. Their ends has nothing to do with racial justice. What it has to do with is changing the economic and social system that we have in the United States, right?
Absolutely. You spot on. It has nothing to do with the ethnicity or gender of a police chief. These folks are calling for mayors to resign as well. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. It has to do with what their agenda is, and it's not supporting anybody who sits in office, anybody who is appointed as a police chief. Let's face it, we saw what happened in Portland. You know, this big hue and cry over federal officers on the ground to protect their facility. But then when they retreated, the federal officers, they continue to riot, they continue to attack local police. So it's never about what it appears. They hide behind these issues, whether it's the unfortunate death of Mr. Floyd, but it is not about that.
Well, let's be specific about what it is about. Black Lives Matter has Marxist roots. We see that a lot of course, Antifas are these crazy anarchists willing to take to the streets and hit anybody over the head as long as they have significant numbers. Otherwise, they cower in response. But BLM riots, in particular, in places like Rochester, New York, which is what we're looking at right now. We're showing video on the screen where they went into a restaurant. Restaurants, as you know, have been crippled by the coronavirus lockdowns. They've tried to get some money by opening outside, and then they have these BLM protests or rioters really coming over, throwing the tables out of the restaurant area, assaulting the people sitting down for a meal, and essentially ruining any chance that the restaurant owners had at making a buck. I mean, this is about totally disrupting our economic system, right?
Absolutely. This is total anarchy. And what's obvious is there's political leadership, I've said it before, who, not in all cities, some cities, who are standing by and saying nothing in fear that they may then be attacked. But the problem is they're being attacked anyway. So you got to understand what the true agenda is. It's certainly not about race. It's something much deeper than that. And we just need to start talking about it, and we need to stand up and call it what it is: total anarchy.
Well, you have
Undermine our
the
current
guts, you have the gumption to stand up and call it for what it is. But as you mentioned, by the way, a lot of politicians are not just being silent. We had Governor Cuomo's office calling what happened in Rochester peaceful protests, which of course were anything but. They were out and out riots determined to destroy private property. You are not taking it, sitting down, and we wish you the very best of luck in continuing to do so. I'm glad the mayor is behind you, by the way. That means a lot. Chief Craig, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good to see you again.